He's faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. And today, we're putting the spotlight on the comics that made him a legend. From key appearances to modern classics, we're breaking down 20 Superman issues that helped shape the Man of Steel. We'll talk market values, CGC census number, and why each book matters. This is Creator Spotlight, Top Superman Comics. It's time for the Creator Spotlight. This week, we're going to be focusing on Superman comics. It says they're top 21. I cheated. I'll explain why. Because it's actually 21 comics. Another thing that I want to share with everybody with the Creator Spotlight now, if you notice, it is going to be part of Go Collect as well. And what I'm going to do now, moving forward, which I've already started. So when we did it 2 weeks ago with the iconic covers, and this past week with the indie comics. You're going to be able to see the CPI numbers for them in Go Collect site. So if you are subscribed to Go Collect, check out the articles. I'm going to post the articles out in, my streams and things like that, so you guys could take a look at them. And those books are going to be there, as well as some fair market value information and things like that. So this is going to be a Go Collect, video moving forward, and we're going to continue doing it. It's not going to change how I do the videos. It's more on a line so I could put it together with the blogs that are part of the articles. So with that being said, guys, check out gocollect.com if you haven't done so already. It's an awesome service. I do articles with them, and I hope you get a chance to read them. Leave a comment on the articles too, and let me know your thoughts there. Let's start off, Shane, with some honorable mentions. And we got 4. Okay, but the honorable mentions here, these are books that they're honorable because they're either a first appearance of a different character, or there's some significance about something, or it's just super cool, right? First one here is Action Comics 252, came out in 1959. It is the Supergirl from Krypton. This is the first appearance of Supergirl, but let's not forget, it's also the first appearance of Metallo. Tell me your thoughts on that one book.
So this is a awesome book. I love it. And recently, we talked about this book before. For some reason, I don't remember why, but a friend of mine was, he got a divorce, so he lost all of his books, had to sell them all, and he recently moved. And when he moved, he found a bunch of his old books, and one of them was this book.
Wow.
And it's in very, very good shape. So he's going to give it to me. I'm going to work some magic on it with hopefully a good press and clean, and we're going to send that thing off. When I looked at it, it's got a couple chips out of it, but I'm thinking it can be at least between a 4.5 and a 6.5. So
still good price for for a book of that age. We're talking about 1959, so great stuff. The other book here is a bit of, I call this one a little bit of an oddity book. And during the 50s, they did a lot of books like this, right? So Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, #1, and it was a series. It had some very interesting stories in it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those stories where it showcases Lois Lane, but in a very Silver Age, quirky, dare I say, just weird. And Jimmy Olsen's was another book that I didn't put on this list, but it is another book that I have to say it falls in the same place as Lois Lane, where it's just they go weird in these books. What's your thoughts on those books?
Well, I thought they were neat because they obviously were trying to capture the other 50% of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's put some stories out there, but then they reached the problem of, okay, well, what are we going to get Lois to do?
And she's done some crazy stuff. There was even that one where she turns into a black lady.
Yeah,
That was weird.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and the whole comic book is how she's gonna get Superman. So is it really Superman's girlfriend, or is it more like Superman's stalker?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how that book was. Our next book here is Superman Annual number 1. Excuse me. Giant Size Annual number 1. It came out in 1960. This is a collection of stories, but was more importantly, this is the first appearance of, and I say first appearance, but it's really the first sighting of the Fortress of Solitude, which is extremely important to Superman. We're going to see it in the movie. What we've seen already has been great as far as the Fortress of Solitude goes and how they're redesigning it.
Yeah, they released a little extended preview of it that I have different thoughts on, but the Fortress of Solitude part was really cool.
And our last book here is Superman Peace on Earth. As you can see by the cover, it is an Alex Ross book. It is an oversized book. I have a copy of it. I was showing it to Shane earlier. It is massive. Then when I say massive, it is bigger than your standard book. It is bigger than a magazine. It is a display item. And this book it's set around, it's a Christmas story as well. It's set out in the Christmas season. And all it is a story by Alex Ross and Paul Tini, and it just shows Superman's compassion, really, where he goes off and he's feeding the hungry and things like that. It's a fun story. It's part of a collection of stories. This is the first of that collection. It's also a Batman, a Wonder Woman. There's a JLA as well. Go check them out. I think they're pretty affordable still. But they are large size and they're very difficult to maintain. They're more, you might as well put it in your bookshelf than you can't put it in a box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So those are your honorable mentions. Let's go in and take a look at this list, starting with the first. Action Comics number 1. This book came out in 1938 for DC Comics. The high sell, you ready for this? $6 million at an 8.5, and that happened last year in April. The last sale of this book, which to me is a shocker, $200 in a no grade, and that also happens to be the average because this book doesn't really sell like that. It's a very rare book. The average CGC grade is a 3.0, and that is at $960,000. There's currently 81 copies in the census, which I think is actually pretty high when you really think about it. It is the debut of Superman. It is the start of the superhero genre in comic books. Before that, there were mostly pulp heroes and things like that. But Superman was like the cape, the trunks, the superpowers. This is the book that started it all.
Yeah, 81 copies too. I mean, like when you compare, because a lot of people would likely, wrong or right. I don't disagree with them, but put like Amazing Fantasy up on the same level as an Action Comics 1. But realistically, when you look at the census, because most of these books are going to be, not too many people are going to have this raw. It's most likely graded because you're going to want to protect it.
Yeah. And if you have it raw, chances are you're going to just get that sucker graded.
I mean, or you're just keeping it forever. Like if you're not grading it, you're keeping it forever. But I mean, in one like this, the only reason not to grade it would be the amount of money it would cost you to do that.
Yeah, because they're going to want a percentage.
Yeah.
In some way. So, but the fact that they'll have it at hand, it's publicity. You know what I mean? It's part of that as well. So you might catch some breaks with it too if you were to have it. I would love to come across one. I've seen it. I've seen the comic book plenty of times when I go to conventions and shows. I've actually held one in my hands as well. It is the size is a slightly bigger than what we know as a comic book because the Golden Age comic books were a little larger than they are today. Let's go over our next book here. Superman number 1, 1938. DC Comics, the high sale of this book was also an 8.0, and it was $5.3 million. That was in January of 2022. The last sale of this book was a 3.5 at $370,000. The Raw goes for a fine, really a fine to poor at $11,100. The graded copies are averaging out at 1.0s and they're $84,000. Census count is a little higher for this one, $188. What makes this significant is that before this, all the characters were part of anthology series. So a lot of what people don't know about Action Comics, many people don't know, is that Action Comics, as well as Detective Comics, they were anthology stories. Superman was not the only story in that comic book, and in same thing with Detective Comic books. Batman wasn't the only story in that comic books. However, here they gave him a dedicated comic book, and Superman he was the first superhero. Not only the first superhero, he was also the first character to have a leading character role in a comic book, which was just within that year. That's how popular Superman was.
And look at how they knocked the logo out of the park immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they could have just done this standard font. They could have just, there's so many things that they just could have did, but someone like decided on that, and it's a winner, right? Like it's so good.
The logo, the pose, everything about it just screams iconic, right?
Yeah.
And is a logo that still exists to this day. That's still the standard logo for Superman.
Yeah, I know. That's what's so amazing about it.
Mm-hmm. Even Batman's has changed over time, but Superman, we're not touching that one.
No.
That one's perfect as is. So
no, it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to our next book here. And that is Action Comics 23. This book came out in 1940 for DC Comics. High sale of this book was at $84,000 as an 8.0. That was in October of 2024. Last sale of this book was $8,100 at a no grade. That was in February of 2025. The Raws are going for $773 at a fair, and 2.0s, $11,100. There's currently 165 copies in the census. This is considered the first appearance of Lex Luthor, the first mention of the Daily Planet. However, very much like Spider-Man, some sources claim that Superman 4 is the first true appearance of Lex Luthor. Both books debuted in February 1940. However, Superman 4 features Luthor on the cover. But they considered this to be the first one.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen this cover before. It's pretty cool. And again, low census count. So, I mean, they're rare. I mean, when people talk about like, you know, and not to say that Mark Spear's books aren't rare, but when you talk about a book being rare, now this book is rare.
Yeah, it is rare. It's again, it's one of those books, right? 23, 1940. It's a great cover as well. You know, really good stuff. You can see Superman's already on the corner box in the top corner there, and it's probably Lois Lane. That's fine. You know what I mean? It's probably her. He's always saving her. But I find it so interesting that even this early on, they already had his main villain. Because back then, characters didn't have villains like that. They were just like throwaway villains. Even Batman's rogues galleys, which many of them were introduced in the Golden Age as well. They're just, you know, they were very much one-offs.
Yeah.
And Luthor was very much kind of the same thing. He wasn't what we know him today. He was more of a mad scientist type. And that was kind of standard back then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just cool to see how,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that they kind of progressed that character and changed it.
Yeah. Let's take a look at our next book. Superman 423. Now, this to me is part of a two-part book. So remember when I said 21? And I say 20, but I said 21. This is one of two. Okay. We're going to start with Superman 423, 1986 for DC Comics. The high sale of this book is at $408 and 9.8. That was in May of 2022. Last sale of this book was $150 at a 9.8. That's also the fair market value for a 9.8. The raws are going for about $12 at a very fine. There's 619 copies in the census for this book. This is written by Alan Moore. It is considered a farewell to the Silver Age Superman and is a poignant and reflective story entitled Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Have you heard about this story?
No, I haven't, but that is a very busy cover.
It is a very busy cover, and it's kind of like, again, it's paying homage to the Silver Age. That's kind of what the intention was here. So during this time in 86, DC was revamping their entire universe, right? Thus, Crisis on Infinite Earths. But before they did that, they wanted to wrap things up beforehand. So some of the books did get like, this is technically a series finale. This book right here. It is the end of this comic book. And it really ended up being the last Superman book before they relaunched it. The story of Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow was written by Alan Moore, and it just tells a nice story about Superman doing his last deed, which leads us to the next book, and that is Action Comics 583. Came out at the same time, also written by Alan Moore. The high sale of this book was $250 at 9.8. That was in April of 2022. Last sale of this book was $14 at a fine, and it goes for about $14 normally for a raw. $131 for 9.8, $324 in $324, you hear me? 324 copies in the census. This is the final story for the Silver Age pre-Crisis Superman from Earth 1. It wrapped up the continuity before Superman will get a relaunch after Crisis of Infinite Earths. And again, it's a farewell story. It's Superman doing his final act before we get a new Superman. That's why those two books go hand in hand.
And those two, they're like, get them raw is affordable. So I would buy those if I found them for sure.
And it's Alan Moore writing it, so you're gonna get top-notch storytelling.
Yep.
Alan Moore's Superman is considered some of the best stories out there. And I have to say it, he doesn't have, we come up with 20 books, right? But throughout the years, there's not as many stories that kind of live up to that. This is the Superman story I want to see. Spider-Man has quite a few. Even Batman has a few here and there. But Superman, for some reason, doesn't necessarily have that. He has a villains gallery, but even that's kind of weak in comparison to other characters.
Yeah, I mean, because the main drive of Superman is, he's very, very powerful, obviously. So I think it's harder to come up with a numerous characters that are going to have to go against.
Yeah, you got to keep coming up with new gimmicks and things like that for it to happen. So this is one of those situations as well. Let's look at our next book, and that is Man of Steel #1. This book came out in 1986 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $198 at a 9.8, and that was in May of 2022. Last sale of this book was $2 at a fine. The raws are going for $3. The graded copies are going from $95. There's currently 313 copies in the census. This is John Byrne's post-Crisis of Infinite Earths reboot. This is where we take Superman from a modern era, and it did impact Superman's continuity. He's not as strong as he once was before, and he is what's the word? He's weak against magic now, which he wasn't beforehand. What's your take on John Byrne's version of Superman?
Well, this is my introduction to Superman. I think I have this one and the other cover for this, the direct one, like the variant, one of the first variants.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. This series, I highly recommend anybody read it. You can pick up all 6. Usually at any con, they have them bundled together for not very much money. Yeah, I think it was really good. I love the art. I like the story. So it was a win for me.
Yeah, and when we look back at Superman, this is kind of like the Superman we our generation is starting to gravitate more towards. We still love the classic Superman and obviously 78 Superman and things like that. But when we think about Superman today, we kind of look back to John Byrne's story and how he was able to take Superman. He created the Lex Luthor we know today, which still stands. You know, the business tycoon,
Yeah.
kind of resembles somebody we know right now, uh, without saying it out loud. And it's just I think it's a better take on Superman, in my
Yeah, it was
opinion.
fun. It was really good. It's a good story for sure.
Yeah. All right. Next book is The Death of Superman. Superman 75, 1993, DC Comics. High sale of this book's $155 and a 9.8, and that was in November of 2021. Last sale of this book was $50 and an 8.5, and the Raws are going for now $11, while the graded copies are going for $94. There's currently 4,400 copies in the census. This is the quintessential Death of Superman storyline, the major event that garnered mainstream media attention and had high impact on the comic industry. This was the book that started the boom that
Yeah,
went downhill from there.
and I didn't even own this book at the time. I bought it just a couple of years ago, actually. Finally,
Really?
yeah, finally cracked down and bought it.
So the one that we're not seeing right now is the bleeding icon, which is the bagged version, right? Um, this book, when it came out, I remember the discussions around it, right? So many people went to buy this book. The comic shops were packed of people that never went to a comic book store
Yeah,
and probably never went to a comic book store again. I also remember the newsstands were packed as well for this comic book. So I was able to pick multiple copies of this book, and I picked it up at a newsstand. I picked it up at a comic book shop. I had two bags, and I had the regular, which is this one. The bagged one was more sought after than this one. However, this is the one that kind of like slowly became the bigger book because it's an iconic image as well. But it has its place in time.
yeah, for sure.
Everybody knows this book. And yes, there are millions of copies that exist.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Not so much as X-Men and Spider-Man, but this one's just as significant.
Yeah, I think it's probably up there in the top 5 for print runs.
Yeah. Top 3, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a look at our next book. That's Kingdom Come #1. This one's 1996 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $225 and 9.8, and that was in April of 2023. Last sale was $18 near mint, and this book is going for about $7, very fine, while 9.8s are going for about $165. There's 785 copies in the census. Now, this is technically a DC Universe story. However, this is more of a Superman story. And when we think about Superman in this story, we think about the struggles he was going through with what was happening, because this is a take on the future of DC Universe, which may or may not happen according to what they say, but it deals with serious themes of superhero comics like legacy, responsibility, and the consequences for unchecked power. This is the book that made Alex Ross a household name. But let's not forget how important it was to the writer as well, Mark Waid. Tell me your thoughts on Kingdom Come.
So this is another one. I only own the trade of it, and I probably bought that about 10 years ago. I have a friend, and he loves this story. He doesn't buy any other comics, but he's bought this one, and we could talk about it every single day because he loves it so much. So there's people out there that just love this story. So, and I agree, it's very good.
It is so good. And Alex's Ross art is it's on a next level with this story because it's fully painted. The amount of Easter eggs that this book has, it's crazy. But it is definitely a book. If you haven't checked it out, pick up a trade so you can read it. In fact, most of these books that we're going through in this list are collected as well. so you could get a chance to read the trades. You could check them out on services like Global Comics or DC Universe app. Read them. They're worth reading. That's what I'm saying. This is a readings list rather than, top keys. This is more about the reading. Let's go to our next book. Superman for All Seasons, #1. This came out in 1998 for DC Comics. High sale. This book was $450 at a 9.9 in January of 2025. Last sale, this book was just $5 at a very fine. That's also a fair market value. 9.8s go for about $220, and there's only 60 copies in the census. This explores Clark Kent's early years with heart and depth. It is Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale at what they do best, telling timeless stories and really just going back, right? They're coming of age story, and this is a great coming of age story for Superman. It's more of a Clark Kent story than a Superman story.
Yeah, and this one I didn't know anything about, but I got a preview of the free books that are coming out on Wednesday, and this first issue is one of them. It's a facsimile of it, and I was really surprised. It looks amazing, so I'm going to try to find these original ones.
Yeah, they're really affordable, but it's such a good story. And Tim Sale's artwork, his Superman's a little bit of, not conventional to what people like, but his artwork in general is just great. Alongside Jeff Loeb's writing, this is a pair that works well together, man. But for All Season, again, it looks back more at his time as Clark Kent in Smallville, becoming Superman. So it's that kind of a story. So a really good story. Check it out. It's called Superman for All Seasons. It's a 4-issue run. Each book is a season. So you have spring, summer, fall, winter, and go check those out. Our next book is a single issue in this Action Comics 775. This book came out in 2001 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is at $239 and 9.8. That just sold in January 2025. Last sale of this book was $21. Very fine. That's also a fair market value for the book. 9.8s are going for $190. There's currently 261 copies in the census. This does feature a first appearance of Manchester Black and the Elite, and it's a story that explores Superman's ideals in a changing world, and it deals with the concepts of more violent anti-heroes. It is a well-respected Superman story. In fact, it is a Superman story that everyone should read, because this is the story that kind of makes Superman who he is. And this is the story that I think Zack Snyder should have read before making Man of Steel, because it proves why Superman doesn't kill. And it's also the story that it's like, what if Superman had to deal with the Punisher and Punisher brand justice? That's what the Manchester Black and the Elite were doing. It was so good that they adapted this one story into an animated movie.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. But this is another one that I would definitely pick up, and the cover art looks, I think, very similar to the new Superman.
Yeah, and it's a Tim Bradstreet. That's why I mentioned Punisher. Tim Bradstreet did this cover, who is notorious for doing some really great Punisher covers. It is so good, man. It's like, what line would you cross? Especially with Superman having all the powers that he is. And again, that the cover says truth, justice, and the American way. Is it whatever happened to it? It is a story that it's a good story to read, even now with this climate this political climate that we're in. It's a great story for that. Let's go to our next book here, and that is Superman Red Sun #1. This book came out in 2003 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $400 and 9.8. That was of March of last year. Last sale of this book is $109 and 9.8. $51 for the near mint raws, $109 for the 9.8. There's currently 340 copies in the census. This is a miniseries by Mark Miller and Dave Johnson. It is What If Superman Landed in the Soviet Union. It is a great take on the character. What's very interesting about this story, I read it, and as you read it, it doesn't go the way you think it would go, because he's still that same type of Superman. Only difference is his morals are still in tune with what a communist would be like. But it's a really good story. Have you ever had a chance to read Red Sun?
No, I haven't. I haven't read that. I think I've seen it though, but I don't think I've ever read it. But another one that I would definitely pick up.
Mhm. Oh yeah. So when, like I said, when you first read it, it has all the tropes that you expect it to have, right? Superman's a communist. He's working for Stalin. He's up against the Americans, but there's still heart in his character, and
Yeah,
that's what I really enjoyed about it. Also, you got Batman in it. You have Wonder Woman in it, and these versions of these characters became iconic, really, to the
and they
point that, like I said, we did get an animated movie.
yeah,
There's
that's what
some
DC,
people want to see a live action version of this.
DC animated has been always been great.
Mhm. Yeah, and this is one of the top ones. Definitely go check it out. Mhm. Our next book is Superman Birthright #1 for DC Comics 2003. High sale of this book is only $30 and 9.8. Last sale of this book was $3. The fair market value is $4 for a fine, $30 for 9.8. There's only 20 copies in the census. It is a 12 issue miniseries, and it is a modern retelling of Superman's origin, and it's aimed to define Superman for the 21st century. This was done by Mark Waid, who also worked with the Neo FU for this story, which is really good story. I don't think it gets as much love because for some reason or another, they seem to love doing these origin stories with Superman. There's a lot of them. We're gonna go through
Yeah,
a lot of them. This
yeah,
is just one of those that another one that they did. It's like, okay, here's another origin story for Superman.
yeah, and that's the thing. And I think some of them get lost. The ones that would be really good, like even that Tim Sale one, you know, and this one, I've never really heard of this one or the other one for that matter.
Yeah. Really affordable. You could get the whole set for like super cheap. Yeah, but it's a fun story. It's a good story. You could read it. It's another origin story, so I'll give you that much. But it does take that same, Superman 78 style to it, but it wants to keep it more in the modern take to today's society within the 2000s. Worth checking out. Um, there's a good reason why it's not ultraly expensive. Our next one, Superman's Secret Identity. This book came out in 2004 for DC Comics. High sale of this book was $35 and a 9.8, and that was in July of 2019. Last sale of this book was $6. Fair market value of this book is $8. This is also $35 is also the fair market value. There's only 12 copies in the census. This one's a good one. I really like this one. This is an Elseworld story. It's a 4-issue Elseworld story by Kurt Busiek and Stuart Immonen, and a boy named Clark Kent in the real world where Superman is just a comic book. However, he mysteriously gains powers like the fictional Superman. And the story follows his life as he tries to live quietly while doing good in secret. So this is a story more in tunes of what if an average kid gained the power of Superman?
Yeah, reminds me of very much of Chronicle.
Yes. But in this particular instance, he becomes more like Superman.
Right. Yeah. Instead of crazy.
Yeah. So it's definitely worth checking out. I had these books. I never really read them, but when I read the synopsis, I just got really interested. I was like, "Oh wow, how would they make this take?" And of course, since he's a comic book reader, he's taking what he's learned from the comic books and he's applying it to his day-to-day life and still keeping his a secret identity intact. Our next book, again, is the classic All-Star Superman #1, 2005 for DC Comics. The high sale was $425 and 9.8. That was in December of 2024. Last sale of this book was $10 at a no grade. Fair market value is $6 for a very fine, $192 for 9.8. There's currently 686 copies in the census. This is a 12-issue series by Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley. This is also technically an Elseworld story, but it's part of the All-Star line that came out during that time. Superman facing his own death and absorbing too much solar radiation, and he's set out to complete key missions and say goodbye the right way. It celebrates everything iconic about the character, his heart, hope, and heroism. This is pretty much a modern take on a Silver Age version of Superman done by Grant Morrison. It is an instant classic.
Oh, this is amazing. I have this one. I've read it a bunch of times. It's actually due for another reading, and it's so affordable. You can get the DC compact of this for whatever they are in US, or $13 Canadian, so $7.99 or $8.99
Mm.
US, and it gives you the whole thing. I mean, everybody should read this. I think.
Yeah, and DC is making an effort to make sure everybody does read this because they constantly reprint it. It's going to be one of the books that's part of Superman Day this weekend, and it's a good story. It's generally a good story. It's Superman without all the fluff that goes along with it, but it just tells a story. It gives you this main characters. So you have Lex Luthor in it. You have Parasite in it, but you also have some other characters in the story as well. There's a really cool story with Lois Lane, and she becomes Superwoman, which is really good. Go check it out. The artwork is. I'm not a huge fan of Frank Quitely, but he killed it in this one.
Oh, I love his stuff. He's crushing it. He's only gotten better. The stuff
Mhm.
on Geiger right now he's doing is amazing.
Yeah. Let's take a look at our next book, and that is Action Comics 844. This book came out in 2006 for DC Comics. We're actually looking at a collection here when it comes to this book, so it is part of a series. The high sale of this book is $100 at 9.8, and that was in March of 2021. Last sale, this book was only $3, which makes it also its fair market value. This book goes for $50 for a 9.8. There's only 50 copies in the census. This was written by Jeff Johns and Richard Donner. That's right, Richard Donner. It features General Zod, Ursa, and Nod, and introduces a Kryptonian boy Superman that tries to raise as his own. The story blends classic movie elements with modern comic storytelling. This story is one of those stories that a lot of people don't talk about, but they should, because it is such a cool take on Superman. And it was so cool to get Richard Donner to be part of it, which Jeff Johns was there to help him in the writing task because he's obviously not a comic book writer. But it was a really cool take on this story. And let's not forget Adam Kubert's artwork on this story was awesome.
Yeah, that's a
It,
really great cover. And this is another one that I hadn't heard
Mhm.
of. So
Yeah.
happy to try to find this one.
Yeah, it's taking the elements of the movie and kind of adapting it into comic book, but doing a mishmash type of thing. Superman Unchained #1. This book came out in 2013 for DC Comics. The high sale of this book was $135 at a 9.8. That was in September of 2023. Last sale of this book was $3 at a very fine. The raws are going for $2. The 9.8s are going for $39. There's currently $935 in. I said it again. I said dollars. 935 copies in the census. It is a 9-issue miniseries by Scott Snyder and Jim Lee, and Superman uncovering a secret government super weapon, a powerful being named Wrath. It questions Superman's role in global politics and military power. He faced threats that challenge both his strengths and his ideals. Another underrated book. It was set in the New 52 era, so this is the New 52 version of Superman.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Totally underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I bought this as it was coming out, read it every month or however often it came out, and I loved it. I didn't understand why, like, more people weren't talking about it. Like, it seemed like I was the only one ordering it. I really enjoyed it. You got Jim Lee art, which the art in it is great. Scott Snyder writing, it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
It was really good. And just again, when you look at Jim Lee, Scott Williams' work, it's like, yeah, how can I not see it's great? You know what I mean? And it was there to commemorate 75 years of Superman. So it was kind of an anniversary issue as well in that way. Here's a rare one. And even I didn't know about this one. It's called Superman American Alien #1. This book came out in 2015 for DC Comics. High sale of this book was $69 at 9.8. That was in March of 2025. So just recently. Last sale of this book was $10 at a no grade, $3 of the raws. $69 is 9.8. There's only 38 copies in the census. This is a 7-issue miniseries by Max Landis. And what's interesting about this one, it's a modern grounded take on Clark Kent growing up and becoming Superman. Each issue shows a key moment in his life from childhood to herohood. It is more raw and personal, showing his flaws, fears, and growth. This one is the rare one of the bunch. This is
See,
the first time I've seen this book, but I don't know much about it.
I love this book. I've read all 7 of them. I have them. They're you're right. They were kind of like a sleeper, almost like Unchained. And it's because I liked Unchained so much when this came out. I remember, and I believe I can't remember for sure if it's a little bit bigger than normal or not. I'd have to go back and look at them, but I really enjoyed reading it. It's another one I'm going to have to go back and read again. It was really good. It's kind of, I think it came out at the same time frame as that Spider-Man story where it was like each issue was a different decade.
Yeah.
So I think it's might have been around that time.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Let's go to our next book. That's Action Comics 1000 2015 for DC Comics. High sell of this book's at $100 at 9.8, and that was in November of 2021. Last sale of this book was $30 at a good grade. The raws are going for $5 near mint, while graded copies are going for $46 at a 9.8. This book has 827 copies in the census, and this is just a milestone Superman legacy book. He hit 1,000, 80 years of Superman.
Yeah.
And what was really cool about this one, the return of the trunks.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, I have this one signed. It's a variant cover of it. The name of him is escaping me. Super famous dude, though. Oh, Neil Adams.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I met him and bought the book, and he signed it. Had a little chat with him. He was in the falls here. It was really great. So I do have one of this issue, just not this cover.
Yeah. Let's take a look at our next book, and that is Superman Up in the Sky, #1. This book came out in 2019 for DC Comics. High sale, this book was $50 at a 9.6, and that was January 2023. Last sale of this book was $3 near mint. We're also going for about $5. The graded copy is going for $46. There's only a lonely 7 copies in the census. This is Superman written by Tom King with art by Andy Kubert, and is Superman going on a cosmic quest to rescue a kidnapped girl. Each issue tests his will, heart, and commitment to doing what's right. It shows why Superman never gives up, no matter how far he has to go.
This one, maybe it suffered because it was just at the beginning of the pandemic. Like I've never heard of this, but you would think King and Kubert on a book that there would be more than 7 in the census. This is seems like something that needs some attention.
Yeah, it's one of those books to me. Like, it was the first time I saw this book, and I was like, interesting. They did a book like this, and Tom King wrote it. But again, we talk about Tom King quite a bit here. He's a hit or miss for many people. There's just sometimes people like Tom King, some people don't like Tom King. I can't say anything towards this book. All I know is that it's a book that people should go out to read because it's worth reading.
Yeah, yeah, and it's affordable enough too.
Yeah, exactly. Superman Smashes the Clang, #1. This book came out in 2019 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $149 and 9.8, and that was in June of 2023. Last sale of this book was $8, and it's at a no grade. And the raws are going for 7, 9.8s are going for $149. This one has even less books in the census with 4. It is a 3-issue miniseries by Gene Luen Yang, and I hope I can get this right, Goriro. Clark Kent's helping a Chinese American family targeted by the Klan at a Fury Cross in 1940s Metropolis. It deals with racism, identity, and Superman coming to terms with his alien heritage. It was inspired by the 1946 Superman radio show that exposes the real-life Ku Klux Klan. I remember when this book came out. I remember its significance. I remember the discussion about the radio story. The only thing to me that kind of hurts this story, because it's such a serious topic, I honestly believe the art doesn't match the subject matter. The art is good, it just doesn't match the subject matter.
Yeah, and I think you're right because I've seen this as like a kid's graphic novel size edition, and that's
Yeah.
really where it was pushed. And you're right. I think that they wanted to get the information out there to as many people as possible, and in trying to do that, they might have got more kids, but they kind of missed the boat on all the regular readers.
Yeah, because it's a he's dealing with the Ku Klux Klan here. It should be a darker story. The artwork is very animated as far as cartoony goes, and I
Yeah,
don't know that fits that subject matter. You know what I'm saying? But it's
yeah.
still a great story.
It reminds me a lot of the animated series.
Yeah, it really does. So, but it's worth checking out. Superman Smashes the Klan. Next book, real fun one. Superman Space Age #1. This book came out in 2022 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $41 at 9.8, and that was December of 2023. Last sale of this book was $10 near mint. We're also going for about $7. 9.8s are going for $39. Another book that only has 4 copies in the census. This is a 3-issue miniseries by Mark Russell and Mike Aldred. It's Clark Kent growing up and becoming Superman. But what makes this one different, it's during key moments of the 20th century. It blends real-world history with DC heroes as they face an incoming apocalypse. The story reflects hope, legacy, and what it means to make a difference. What I love about this book is, first of all, the artwork. I think Mike Aldred's artwork is great. But it has this Superman coming through the Cold War era, and it's periodical. So you got Superman in the 60s, the 70s, and moving upwards. This is one everybody should grab.
Yeah, and this is another one I haven't heard of, but you kind of get the idea of the theme of a lot of these reads is like they don't do much with the character. They put the character in known situations that he wouldn't usually be in, like going through the Cold War or fighting Klan or whatever. They don't really. It's very interesting to see that. But this is another one I'd try to find.
Yeah, this is a good one, man. Go check it out. For the price, might as well, right? But this is a book to read. I understand the 4 books in the census. This is a book you want to read.
Yeah.
And there you have it. Those are the top 20 Superman comic books. As I mentioned before, this list was really more about readers' list. Go check out the article. It's going to be on Go Collect sometime next week. So probably about a week from today, it'll be in Go Collect. But check out the article. I'll let you guys know when the article comes out. Thank you for watching the top 20 Superman comic books. I hope you enjoy this list as much as I enjoy creating this list. Because, again, I didn't want to stick to just big keys. I wanted to stick to story because that's what this is about. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more comic content. Check out these other videos for even more insight, and I'll see you at the next one. Excelsior.